And my middle child, she looked at me and she went, "Is it hard having kids?" And in that moment, her moments are harder than others, and burst out laughing. And so did they, and cleaned their teeth and went to bed. And it was just this moment of letting go, of having to be the boss, having to be the mother, having to be right, having to have it go my way. That just subtle acceptance in the moment of, you're not controlling this. Welcome to the World Beyond Resilience podcast. I'm Angela Phil.
And I'm Carolyn Gibson.
And we are going to discuss and discover together one of the 5 going on 6 or 7 somatic mindset shifts that are really important when we look at going from a resilient position, which is extractive, and into the beyond resilient mindset where you can go from survive to thrive.
Angela, you've been working on this for quite a while, and I took one of your very first courses on Beyond Resilience where you were developing these shifts. And I think these come out so clearly in some of our conversations that we have with our guests that we thought it would be useful to actually name them and talk about them specifically so that our listeners can draw some conclusions for themselves around what our guests are saying and what their own experience is and how these might resonate.
Yeah, and really weave them into your own life. And so we wanted to give it that framing so that there's something concrete that you can grasp rather than simply theoretical, but also see how you can weave those concepts in as well in practical ways for yourself. So we're going to start with one today.
That's right. And the reason why is because we were really inspired by Josiane Gautier's conversation. And this really was something that resonated with us, and that's resignation to acceptance. Do you want to say a little bit more, Angela, about that?
Yes, I do, because I bet if I question you, Carolyn, or if I'm questioning our readers and we say, no, I'm not resigned, I'm very good at accepting things. There's a really fine line between resignation and acceptance. And we can only truly move forward from setbacks if we learn to accept and let go. So if I say acceptance about letting go, sometimes letting go is something that people find a bit harder, and they'll start saying, "Oh yeah, maybe I'm a little more resigned than accepting." One thing that I learned from my coaches, a particular saying was, "You can't leave a place you've never been." So acceptance is really about being able to be with the whole truth of a situation, recognize it for what it is, and then process the emotions that go with it, and then be able to move forward. I find in resignation, we still get a little bit stuck holding on to, wow, that's just the way it is. And there's a lot of defensiveness, still holding on, gritting your teeth and dealing with it, that acceptance really doesn't have. What would you add to that, Carolyn?
A lot of this came out with the conversation that we had with Josiane around her experience in the tsunami, coming into a situation where she thought she had to cope and she thought she had more to give and she didn't. And it was so hard for her to come to that realization. But when she accepted that, she was able to really be present in the moment. She was really able to process her emotions better. And she felt stronger as she came out of it and more able to lead as she did.
Yeah, it's really interesting because accepting your limits, I mean, I'm a coach, right? So we're always about going beyond your limits. But being able to go to beyond your limits also means accepting them first, recognizing what they are. And from that place, you can actually choose more freely how you're going to surpass them and in what ways. So, from a resignation point of view, you're resigned to something, you're immediately in a cycle where you have to keep overcoming. I'm in Bulgaria at the moment. And I was talking with a group of women about the difference between resignation and acceptance. And from that place of like, oh, always going to be this way. I don't want it to be like that. But well, I'll just have to accept it. Again, that's not acceptance. And what tends to happen is then resentment builds up and or frustration builds up. But we don't want to look at the frustration and we don't want to look at the resentment. and to not feel it and overcome it, then we're going to start being angry at the outside. It's going to be another push of force to get through something. And then that leads us to sometimes that not working or only working partially, and then exhaustion. And then, well, I'll just have to accept I can't do it. But still, there's no real definition or discernment of limits like Josiane did describe. In that moment, it's like a moment of grace when you accept, when you're in acceptance. And again, we use our river as a metaphor, right? The river's always accepting what's there. She's not resigning herself to it. She's not, I'm going to resign myself to this cliff in my way, but she's not always forcing against it either. And there's that moment of grace, recognizing our humanity, recognizing the emotions that we're having, and allowing sadness, or recognizing powerlessness when it's there rather than having to force and push through it. And from that place, something new being able to arise.
What I'm hearing from you is one of the aspects of it that people don't also realize, which is when you have those feelings of resentment or anger or lack of acceptance, that you don't have that grace, then people feel it, right? The people around you feel it. And you're getting then a different reaction from them to maybe what you're hoping for when you're actually you're gritting your teeth and you're bearing through it, and you're resenting it all the way, and you're wondering why people aren't grateful, or you're wondering why people aren't responding happily to the fact that you're doing all these things for them, and yet you're doing it with this underlying energy which is so poisonous to yourself and to other people, right?
I have an example to give, which is like, it's not world scale like Josiane's, which was really poignant, but I have one I have 3 children, and when they were really young, so any mother with children trying to get them to bed so you can have peace. I wanted them to clean their teeth, and I tried everything from cajoling to authority to whatever. They weren't having a bar of it. They were just like, wah, 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 acting the lark. And I was feeling so angry and powerless at the same time. And I just remember all of a sudden accepting that I felt powerless. And it wasn't cognitive. Now I'm starting to realize that it can be something to tap into. And that's what we would like for you to recognize when things are happening in the moment and be able to be with them. But it was just a stroke of grace and luck at that time. And there was a part of me going, you can't control this situation. But it wasn't, well, I'll just have to accept it. And literally in that moment, I allowed myself to feel powerless. And I had my back against the wall, and I slipped down the wall and just sat on the bathroom floor and watched them. And my middle child, she looked at me and she went, is it hard having kids? And in that moment, are harder than others, and burst out laughing. And so did they, and cleaned their teeth and went to bed. And it was just this moment of letting go, of having to be the boss, having to be the mother, having to be right, having to have it go my way. That just subtle acceptance in the moment of, you're not controlling this. Be with the non-control, and that being able to deblock the situation. And it's something that we just don't do. So that's the subtle exercise.
Yeah. And bringing it into an organizational setting, I remember that very clearly, always feeling like I had to be so prepared for a meeting and have to know everything. And then all of a sudden, again, realizing that I'm never going to be as prepared as I need to. I'm never going to be. And I just have to walk in and I have to accept and I have to be who I am. And that's going to be good enough. And oh my gosh, the quality of conversation that I had, the feeling that I had of being in the room was just so different. And all it required was saying, well, actually, I'm not going to be as good as I want to be, and that's fine. I'm just going to be myself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try being yourself. I think that's really poignant, what you've just said. We have an idea of how things should be rather than being with the reality of how they are. And that's what acceptance is, about accepting reality. And it's only just accepting reality for now, for this moment. Because the other thing our minds do is project that it's always going to be this way. And I hear this all the time. I just have to accept that this will never change. And people are saying to me, I accept. And so I don't feel like you've accepted. No. And so
Yeah.
recognizing that it's a momentary thing. It's in this moment and then in the next moment. And it's a practice. And that's where that river metaphor comes in, like that transparency of water. The moment's gone. The moment before is gone. It's always fresh. So being able to be in the freshness and accept who you are now in this moment. From that place, you can then say, well, that worked out this way. How would I like it to improve? And what was great about it? So you're always being able to then really deal with something from a reality rather than from an ideal or an idea, which is a bit stale.
I think it's great. And if listeners here are interested in the rest of the different shifts that we're going to be going through them through the series as we have our conversations with our guests. Please give us some comments, give us some ideas about what you've done in practice, and we'd love to hear about it. And that brings us to the end of another episode of the World Beyond Resilience podcast.
If anything you heard today sparked an aha moment or made you think differently about resilience, please tell us about it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.
And please share it with everyone you know.
For more episodes exploring how we can thrive beyond just bouncing back, follow our show on your favorite platforms.
And of course, we have additional resources and deeper dives into all the topics we discuss on our website, which is worldbeyondresilience.com.
So we absolutely love this topic, and we can see the possibility for this to create really powerful, vibrant, prosperous change in organizations and systems. So if this conversation interests you and you start to feel that spark as well, and you think it would be useful for yourself or within your organization, feel free to get in contact. So until next time, remember, there's a whole world of possibilities beyond just being resilient. Take care.